Welcome to the Weekly Roar, coming live from the Lion's Den, helping new managers become great leaders and awesome bosses. And now, here's your host, Greg Storch.
Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining me today. Welcome to the Weekly Roar. I'm Greg Storch, owner of Lion Enterprise, host of the Weekly Roar, and the founder of a worldwide bartered coaching program called The Helping Hand. Now, I'm a certified professional leadership coach and a certified leadership speaker and trainer. It's time for tip number 6 for new leaders, and that is to lead by example. So let's go ahead and get started with tip number 6. Now, I love this quote by Albert Schweitzer, who said, "The 3 most important ways to lead people are by example, by example, by example." For new leaders, and as a reminder for the seasoned leaders, we have to understand the importance of our words and actions. As the leader, what we say and do influences those we lead. The fact is, there's a lot of truth in the saying that people do what people see. When it comes to leading, our followers will mirror what we do as the leader. This is one of the best ways to create the culture that you want to see in your organization. And if you're a new leader and you aren't running an organization, it's a great way for you to set the tone for your team. Now, I've spoken about this previously, and I told you that even when you don't think you're being watched, you're being watched. Someone is always watching what you do and listening to what you say. So choose both wisely when you're leading. Do you want to know what the difference is between a strong team and a not so strong team? It's their leader. A strong team has a leader that is leading by example. After all, leaders are charged with shining a light on the path ahead, and they model the behavior they want their employees to emulate. When a leader does those things, their followers reciprocate by mirroring the leader's behaviors. They follow the footsteps laid out by the leader. Now, when I say lead by example, what I'm really saying is that we have to walk the talk. Now, there's an old version that says you have to walk the walk and talk the talk. But nowadays, I just say walk the talk. That way, I encompass everything. Now, gone are the days of do as I say and not as I do, right? That doesn't fly today. Our followers want to see that our actions match our words. And I'll tell you, they'll be quick to detect inconsistency here. Aligning our words and our deeds when we walk the talk, that's when we can say we're being an authentic leader. Now, for my new leaders out there, know this. One of our biggest responsibilities as leaders is to inspire and influence other people to do the best that they can do and to be the best that they can be. If you want to be able to do that, you have to be willing to be an active player in the process by leading by example. Now, there's one very important word that I want to say when it comes to why it's so important for leaders to lead by example. It has a lot to do with creating the solid foundation upon which your leadership is built. What do you think that word might be? Yeah, that's right. You probably guessed it. That one single word is trust. Leading by example is how we build trust with those we lead. Now, I think it would be safe to assume that we probably experienced that boss who tells their people that they have to work late, but they leave at 5 p.m. Or At least we know someone who's experienced that, right? Or we know that supervisor who criticizes others for spending time on the internet at work while they're sitting in their office ordering personal stuff on Amazon or booking their next vacation. There's nothing more damaging to our followers' morale, nothing more damaging to a work culture than a leader who lives by the do as I say, not as I do philosophy. No matter what, at the end of the day, leaders who have double standards, saying one thing and then doing another, destroy the trust and foster feelings of betrayal to those they're leading. If you're in a leadership position, then you know that you have a responsibility to your team. They look to you for guidance and strength. That's part of what being a leader is. And a big part of your responsibility is to lead them with your own actions. Now, you can probably imagine all the positive benefits of what can happen when you lead by setting a good example. I already mentioned a few of them, like increasing the morale of your followers and building a foundation of trust and respect. Good leaders understand that their actions influence their followers' attitudes and performance. And someone who leads by example earns the trust and respect of their followers and those that work with them. But it also has a positive impact on creating a positive work culture, right? That's the character of an organization, and it includes our beliefs and our behaviors. So what I want to do today is I want to share a few different ways that you can be sure to lead by example. Now, follow these tips and you'll be on your way to setting the example for others to emulate. Now, you've probably heard the saying that a leader shouldn't ask someone to do something that they aren't willing to do themselves, right? Well, that's why this first tip is so important. And that is to be sure to get your hands dirty. Even though leaders provide direction, it's just as important that they be willing to get involved in the work too. Not only does that help us as leaders to develop our own skills or refresh old skills that we had, but it can grow our knowledge while building our trust. It can also give us an idea of the challenges that are facing our followers, which allows us to develop ways to make their lives easier. So ask questions, hang out with your team members, or even shadow someone for the day. You know, I told the story several weeks ago about how John Wooden would always pick up towels laying on the floor in the locker rooms. Whether he was at home or on the road, he would pick up the towels just thrown all over the place. And soon, his own players began to pick up the towels that were laying around the locker room. It got to the point that the janitors at the schools where they would go on the road to visit would send thank you letters telling the coach how they had never seen such a clean locker room after a game. Not only was Coach Wooden leading by example, but he was following the golden rule of not being afraid to get his own hands dirty. Now, if leading by example helps leaders build trust, then the second tip will be essential to help you do just that. If you want to learn to lead better by example, then here's my second tip. Always make good on your promises. Nothing will ever erode a leader's trust factor more than going back on your word or failing to make good on a promise that you've made. When we don't keep a promise to someone, we're basically telling them through our lack of action that we don't value them, that we are choosing to put something else ahead of our own commitment to them. Even when we break small promises, we begin that cycle of developing distrust. And that's where the tiny cracks start to appear in our relationships. But when we become consistent and intentional in keeping our promises, we develop a reputation of being dependable, reliable, and trustworthy. It's through repetitious promise keeping that we develop and strengthen our relationship with those who follow us. If you want to grow in your leadership, then you need to learn to keep the promises that you make. Now, here's the third tip that I want to share with you. This is just as important as the other two. Actually, it might be the most important because this is a good place for leaders to start off on the right foot. So my third tip is to simply value others. Valuing others can be as simple as authentically appreciating their work. It helps strengthen the relationship between leaders and their followers. We can show people we value them by getting really good at active listening. Active listening and good communication skills are essential for leaders because they make employees feel part of the team and they also feel heard when they speak up. Also, as leaders, we can value others when we're honest, when we're fair, and when we're open to discussions that relate to their personal side, that human side of our followers. Here's a fact. When people feel safe in their environment, when they feel that it's safe for them to show up and be themselves, they'll be more productive for you. It's because they know it's okay for them to bring their concerns, their strengths, their vulnerabilities, and their creativity to their job. Trust me, this is exactly what a leader strives for. At least the good ones do. And this is exactly why you ought to work hard to show you care. It's how your people will know that you have their back and that you'll stand by them. So here are the 3 tips that will help you begin to lead by example. First, be willing to get your hands dirty. Don't ever ask anyone to do something that you aren't willing to do yourself. The second thing is always make good on your promises, right? When you deliver on what you said you would every time, then you build trust with those you lead. And once you have their trust, they will begin to mirror the same things you display day in and day out as their leader. And then the third thing that you have to do is to value others. Become a person of value who values others, who adds value to others. Get to know your people at a personal level and value what they bring to the table. Learn to value them as fellow human beings, and that is what will win the day every day. Here are my final thoughts. Good leadership takes strength of character and a firm commitment to do the right thing at the right time for the right reason. And that means doing what you say when you say it. If your team can't trust you, you're never going to lead them anywhere. Listen, leading and living by example isn't as hard as it might sound. If your team knows that you'll also do whatever you expect from them, you'll develop that trust that it takes for them to follow you anywhere, anytime. Our actions as leaders serve as the standard of what will be considered acceptable and unacceptable from the people that you're leading. They'll watch your actions and listen to your words to set the benchmark in deciding how they should behave. In other words, they're watching you walk the talk. So let me leave you with this great quote by Henry David Thoreau. It's a beautiful expression of exactly what this tip for new leaders is all about. And he said, if you would convince man that he does wrong, do right, but do not care to convince him. Men will believe what they see. Let them see. Wow. Okay, well, that's going to do it for today. So listen, we're going to be celebrating my 200th episode of the Weekly Roar at the end of April. And I want to invite all of you to join me and some of my closest tribe members during a panel discussion on the importance of growth. Now, all of my guests are experts in growth, and this is one that you are not going to want to miss. So stay tuned for upcoming information on this event. Now, don't forget to join me next week for tip number 7 for my new leaders when I discuss a leader's communication. Now, until we meet again, remember, be powerful, but stay poised just like a lion. Bye, everybody.
Thanks for watching the Weekly Roar live event at lionenterprise.com. If you enjoyed this video, please tell others to join us each week here in the Lion's Den. Thanks again, and see you next week.